Hi, friends. Any successful business strategy starts with understanding what your pricing strategy is. And by that, I mean asking yourself the question, what will my offer cost? And by offer, I mean the services and or the products that you sell. Understanding how to price your offer is at the very core of your income model. And by income model, I mean how you structure your income to come from so that your business is profitable in the long term. So you might already know about some principles to price your offer, such as looking at your competitors and seeing what the market value of your offer is, or you have to understand how much something costs you in order for you to decide how much you're going to sell it for. But in this video, I'm going to really dive deep into all the different pricing strategies that you may not know about if you just started your business and you're looking into growing it. And before we dive in, hi, I'm Susie. I'm a finance director, a business owner, and an investor. And on this channel, I talk about all things finance and business in a way that is accessible to those who don't have a finance or business background. If this is the kind of stuff that you're into, hit subscribe. I'd love to have you. So first up, let's look at what are the cost-based pricing strategies. As the name suggests, these are the strategies that start with how much something costs you to make, and then from that, you decide how much to sell your offer for. These are particularly popular for all the product-based businesses out there because you have something physical to produce, and there's a long list of costs that you incur in order for you to be able to make your product. So those are all things like obviously materials and labor, but also inventory related costs. So how much does it cost you to stock your stuff somewhere? And also delivery costs, shipping costs. So for this model, you will need to know how much something is going to cost you to make. And then based on that, you will decide on the price. Now, one strategy is called the cost plus pricing. So this is when you calculate how much a product or a service costs you to deliver, and then you add a markup on top of that. So a markup is a specific percentage of the cost that you add on top of the cost, and that will be your price. This is great for all those products that have pretty predictable costs, such as, manufacturing. If you make microphones, for example, it will be relatively easy to calculate how much each individual unit that you're selling will cost you. And based on that, you add a little bit on top of that cost, and then that will be your price. The good thing about this model is that it kind of ensures that your costs are at least covered, and it's also quite simple. However, the cons of this model is that it kind of ignores the market and it ignores the value perceived by the potential customers. If there's a very, very high demand for the things that you're selling, you might even get away with pricing it a little bit higher than what you would with a cost plus pricing model. Or maybe the opposite is true. Maybe the market is already pretty saturated. And so if you completely ignore what the demand is, you might be overpricing your product because whatever the markup that you're applying would overprice your offer and nobody would buy it because there's other less expensive options that do the job just right. Another group of pricing strategies is called market-oriented pricing strategies. So this is where you conduct a very thorough analysis of the market and your competitors, and then based on those results, based on that data, you decide what the pricing is. So you don't start from the cost, you start from what the market wants and what the market is ready to spend. So one strategy is called competitive pricing. This is where you look at all of your competitors and how they are pricing similar products to the ones that you're selling, and then you match that price or you slightly adjust it based on that. So to give you an example, if you compare the prices to the different accounting softwares that are available out there, you will see that the prices are more or less similar. This is because there's many options out there for accounting softwares. So every business is trying to more or less align themselves with the market price because they want to maximize their profits, but also they don't want to overprice themselves. You cannot stretch your price much higher than what your competitors are doing. You might want to resort to solutions to reduce your costs. And so the question is, will the quality of your output be reduced over time? Or will you result to maybe outsourcing your labor to third world countries where the labor costs are super low, which obviously is a bit of an ethical conundrum nowadays. And by the way, you might hear hear some construction noises, I'm really sorry. There's nothing that I can do about that. They're just making this noise. I hope you can still hear me clearly. Another market-oriented pricing strategy is called penetration pricing. So that means that you enter the market at a lower rate compared to your competitors, and then you grow that over time. This is very good if your first goal is just to attract customers and build that customer base, and then over time you will slowly increase your rates. This is what many small businesses do, especially if you're still learning so much about your offer, if you're still learning so much about what you do and how you offer it. What many small businesses or even sole traders tend to do when they're first starting their side hustle or their business is that they set lower rates compared to the general market average. And then as they learn new skills and as they gain more and more customers and they acquire that customer loyalty and that great relationships with their clients, then they increase their rates down the line with the confidence that they're exchanging value for value, right? So if what they're offering is really fantastic, then they will feel more confident in just increasing their rates as they maybe gain more qualifications, as they gain more experience, and as they gain more demand. I also want to mention the technique called price skimming. So price skimming is the opposite of price penetration. This means that you may launch an offer at a higher price, and then that reduces after a little bit of time. And so this is normal in the technology industry, right? So when a new iPhone launches, it costs like thousands of pounds, and then the year after it's like 80%, and then the year after it's 50% of its original price. So you see that quite often with tech companies and with more innovative products and offers, where at the beginning you might be one of the only ones who sell it, and then as the market adapts and as competitors also adapt, the demand diminishes a little bit, and so you decrease the prices as well over time. Now let's move on to value-based pricing strategies. These are particularly relevant to those of us who sell services, because essentially the biggest cost for service-based businesses are people and our time. In my business, most of what I do is I act as a finance director for hire. So other companies outsource their financial function to me and I manage it. And so most of what I do is really based around the time that I have and the knowledge that I hold and my expertise. So the value-based pricing for me is what's most relevant. I always have to keep an eye out on the market and see if I'm competitive compared to other people that offer the same things that I do. But most of all, I really want my clients to understand that what they're paying for is what they get. And if they engage me to resolve their problems, they're getting a lot out of me. So this is where value pricing comes in. There's two different angles that you can look at value pricing. So pure value pricing is simply you try and cost up how the client feels after you resolve their problem. So for example, if you're a consultant and you deliver services to businesses where you teach their staff how to achieve and maintain staff well-being, that's something where the perceived value of this will play a big part in the way that you price your offer. In this example, the clients may be suffering a problem. The problem is that their staff is unhappy. Line managers don't receive any training on how to keep the staff happy. There's a lot of internal grumbles. There's a lot of HR issues. And so if someone intervenes and does a full audit on staff well-being in the company and then compiles a report on what to do to improve the situation and maybe delivers even a little bit of training to managers on how to manage staff more effectively, that might flip the problem upside down. And so the result is happy staff, better reputation, lower turnover, higher productivity. So you really need to tell a compelling story about all the benefits that your consultancies would bring to this company if they hire you to resolve their problem. The value that the company gives to this may change from company to company, but it is your job and it is within your scope to educate them on how important resolving that problem is. And so you might look at, what is the cost of an unhappy employee? What is the cost of a high turnover? What is the cost of having X amount of HR reports every year? And once they're sensitive to that perceived cost, then it might be easier for you to apply some kind of pricing on your offer. Another way to look at it is the outcome-based pricing. It's like a further step beyond what I just said. So with the outcome-based pricing, you monetize the benefit and then you apply a percentage of that as your fee. So to give an example, if you're a marketing consultant or a copywriter, you will be able to say, okay, so I will write all the copy for this launch that you want to do, and I expect this launch to make X amount of money, and so I will charge you 10% of that amount. So this is where it's a bit easier to give monetary value of the outcome that you're promising. The risk there is that if you're not able to achieve the results, what happens with your relationship with your customers? If you under-deliver on the value that you promised, how are you going to manage that relationship? Will you give some of your money back? Or what if you make more than that and you undercharged? That might be also a little bit complicated to navigate, but that gives a little bit more of a practical starting point for you to price your offer. You estimate how much you're going to be able to bring in terms of monetary value to your client, and then you just apply a percentage of that as your fee. Then we should look at bundle strategies. So this is where you create a price based on just bundling together 2 or more offers. And that bundle comes at a lower price than your clients would pay if they bought the individual products separately. So this is great for upselling. So this is great if you want to push for sales and you want to create a time-limited offer that would encourage people to spend more money than they would otherwise. This is probably best with digital products because digital products have such a high profit margin, then bundling a few of them together at a discount is still probably going to be a pretty good idea. Whereas if you do it for product-based offers, you need to be careful about really costing that up and still making sure that you're making a profit, even if you're selling them at a discounted rate. Another bundle strategy is the tier-based pricing. So that's when you have several levels of memberships, for example, and each level offers a little bit more than what the previous level offered. A good example is like the memberships, right? If you're supporting any artist on Patreon, you will see that the basic monthly payment gives you a set amount of benefits, and then the following one gives you a bit more and then a bit more, and so on and so forth. So this allows you to really make the most out of your audience, and your clients have different choices that they can pick depending on what their budget is. And then also a good thing about this method is that if someone joins at a basic rate, you can then cultivate that relationship and then invite them to join a higher price tier down the line. This can also be quite handy if you are a consultant and you have different kind of markets that you're targeting. So for example, something that I used to do is I would have a 3-tiered system for my clients, and you would pay the lowest fee if you were a sole trader, and then you would pay a slightly higher fee if you were a charity, and then you would pay like a premium price if you were a for-profit company with over X amount of turnover per year. So that allowed me to offer a different pricing solution based on the budget of my clients. And then lastly, I want to talk about dynamic and custom pricing. Dynamic pricing is when the prices fluctuate depending on customer demand and behavior. So a massive example here is plane flight costs. They're always going to cost more around bank holidays and national holidays and international holidays, while the prices will dip during low season. Another example is when I worked in a theater a few years ago, we adopted a dynamic box office selling system whereby the people that booked their tickets the earliest had the best prices. This encouraged our audiences to book as soon as possible because they knew that if they booked immediately, they would have the best prices for the same seats. And the more you waited to book your tickets, the more eventually the prices would cost. Whereas custom pricing is based specifically on the needs of the customer. So rather than having a product or a package of services with a fixed price, you identify what the customer needs and then you create a quote based on that. So for example, someone who makes furniture for a living, if someone asks for a bespoke kitchen given the specific measurements of their home, they will probably need to price that offer based on that specific situation. So they will need to cost up the materials needed, and based on the surface area that the kitchen will have to cover, they will need to estimate how much labor that will take and how much materials that will take and how much time that will take, and then the quote will be based on that. Same thing with jewelry making. If someone commissions you a specific ring, for example, then you will have to, again, cost up the materials, cost up your labor, cost up your time, and then you will set a specific cost for that ring. So obviously this allows for quite a bit of flexibility so that you can consider each offer and each client individually, but obviously it can be quite time consuming. So every time you'll have to put together a quote and a proposal, and then you don't have the guarantee then that the client will be happy with what you offer. And there you have it. These are the pricing strategies that every small business owner should know about when considering their pricing strategies and their overall business model. Let me know in the comments if you enjoyed this video and if there's anything else that you would like me to share in one of my next videos. It was a pleasure to spend this time with you, and I'll see you at the next one. Bye.